I was only 16 when my mother's boyfriend began abusing me night after night. No one believed me. No one saw the danger, not until it was too late. Now at 80 years old, I share my story not for sympathy, but as a warning. Abuse doesn't always come from strangers in the shadows. Sometimes it lives right inside the walls we call home. If you believe no one will listen, I'm here to say your voice matters. Speak up. And if this story resonates with you, please like, comment, and share, because silence only protects the wrong people. Everything started at that moment, when I stood at the edge of the hallway motionless, as if my body had suddenly forgotten how to move. I wasn't meant to be home yet. School had let out earlier than usual, and I'd thought it'd be a nice surprise to walk in and see Mom before dinner. But nothing could have warned me about what I walked into. Nothing could have prepared me for that. Mom was in the living room, leaning in too close toward a man who wasn't my father. Not David, not the man who taught me how to ride a bike or tucked me in with stories about sea monsters and stars. No, it was Dr. Nathan, the family doctor, the man I'd known since I was little, my dad's best friend. I couldn't breathe. I didn't want to blink, afraid it would make the scene vanish or worse, become even clearer. Nathan's hand reached up and brushed gently against my mom's cheek like they were something out of a secret romance. Then they kissed. At first, it was soft tentative, like neither of them was sure. But then it deepened slow and certain, like this wasn't their first time, like it wouldn't be the last. Mom's fingers slipped behind his neck, pulling him in like she knew exactly what she was doing. My chest ached. It was like my heartbeat had turned into a drum inside my rib cage. My hands were shaking useless at my sides. I should have shouted. I should have made a sound. But I just stood there, nailed to the hardwood floor, like some tragic statue. They didn't even see me. They were too wrapped up in each other, too far gone. Then the front door clicked shut behind me. Not loud, not dramatic, just a small, simple sound. But it was enough to make her look up. Mom's eyes found me and everything in her face collapsed. The color drained out of her cheeks, as if someone had turned the life off inside her. We stared at each other, two people now standing on opposite sides of something broken. My mouth was dry. I wanted to scream, cry, say something clever, cutting anything, but I couldn't. So I turned. I walked out the door. And when it closed behind me, it felt final, like an ending, like something sacred had been burned to ash. She didn't follow. She never did. And maybe she knew there wasn't any coming back from that. The divorce came quickly, almost like they'd been waiting for the excuse. I guess I always knew their marriage had cracks, but I didn't realize the whole thing was a glass house waiting for a stone. I heard the fights, Dad's angry shouting through the walls, Mom sobbing behind the bathroom door. But knowing something's wrong isn't the same as watching it shatter. When Dad left, he didn't slam the door, he just disappeared. He packed his things, kissed my forehead like it was any other night, and vanished from the house that used to be full of laughter. Suddenly, it was just Mom and me and Nathan. I didn't stay with Mom because I forgave her. God, no. I stayed because the thought of living with Dad, watching him unravel day by day, scared me more than staying in a house I hated. He used to be solid, my anchor. But after everything, he was just a ghost with tired eyes and hollow words. The betrayal had eaten him alive, and I couldn't be around to see the rot. But staying didn't mean I was okay. The silence in the house was suffocating. Mom tried to pretend like life went on, like we could pretend the world hadn't cracked in half. But I couldn't forget. Every time I looked at her, all I could see was that kiss. That one moment that tore everything apart. Nathan moved in like it was no big deal, as if swapping places with my dad was just some minor adjustment. He smiled too much, said good morning like we were some happy blended family on a Hallmark card. I didn't respond, not once. One morning as I poured cereal into a chip bowl, he leaned against the counter too casual. "Grace," he said, all calm and patient, "I know things have been tough." I didn't even let him finish. "You don't know anything," I snapped, my voice slicing through the kitchen air like broken glass. His face shifted, eyes blinking like he didn't expect the bite. "I know it's a tough adjustment," he continued. "Parents splitting up is never easy, especially for teens. But in time, you'll see, it's for the best." For the best, I turned to him, then fingers gripping the edge of the counter so hard I thought the wood might crack. "My family fell apart because of you, and you think it's for the best." He opened his mouth again, maybe to offer some polished answer he'd use on patients or clients. But I was already gone, storming down the hallway with my heartbeat pounding against my ribs. Mom had been standing there the whole time, just watching from the doorway. She didn't say a word. Her expression hadn't changed in months. A quiet, haunted kind of guilt she wore like perfume. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into something colder. Mom tried at first, tried to talk to me, to explain, to fix what she broke, but I gave her nothing. My replies were brief or non-existent. I built a wall with every unanswered question and every dinner eaten in silence. Nathan never stopped pretending. He kept showing up in rooms like a shadow I couldn't shake. Every time he smiled like we were normal, every time he acted like the damage didn't count, I hated him more. I couldn't even be in the same room without feeling like I was choking. And Mom, she just kept trying to tape over the cracks with soft words and forced smiles, but nothing could fix it. Not really. Not when all I could see when I looked at either of them was the kiss that ruined everything. I hadn't planned to stay out that long. But once I was out there, beneath the orange flicker of streetlights, the night humming low and empty, it felt easier to keep walking than to come home. Midnight had come and gone by the time I turned the key in the door, half hoping Mom would already be asleep. She wasn't. She was standing in the living room phone, still clenched in her hand like she'd been dialing my number over and over. The dim light made her look older, more fragile, like something carved from worry and regret. Nathan was slouched on the couch pretending to watch TV, but I could feel his eyes tracking me the second I stepped in. "She's fine," he said, casual like always. "Teenagers lash out. It's normal. She just needed air. Normal." He didn't have a clue. Not about me, not about what he'd done, and definitely not about the reasons I was disappearing more and more lately. Mom didn't answer him. I could see it on her face, that fear, raw and real, twisting inside her like something she couldn't name. When she saw me, she rushed forward, relief crashing into her like a wave. But I didn't stop. I walked right past her, the cold between us louder than any scream. Her footsteps didn't follow, only silence did. That was how it always was now. Heavy, constant pressing down on the walls, like it might crush us both if one of us dared speak first. She tried. I'll give her that. She tried to pull me back, to bridge the gap, to pretend there was still a way to fix what she broke. But it was useless. I'd stopped looking her in the eye a long time ago. I couldn't remember when exactly. Maybe it was the night I caught them, or maybe it was the way she still let him sit at our table like nothing had happened. My room became my sanctuary. My door always shut tight. Her knocks went unanswered. Her words bounced off me like raindrops on stone. Nathan liked to play the voice of reason. "She's a teenager, Sarah," he'd say with that smooth, rehearsed calm, his hand always finding her shoulder. "It's part of growing up. They drift away. It's nothing personal." But it was personal. She didn't see it, or maybe she did and just didn't want to. She didn't notice how I tensed every time he walked into a room, how my hands clenched at the sound of his voice. This wasn't just some angsty teenage phase. This was fear, Quiet, deep-rooted, and growing more each day, but Nathan never wavered. "You're overthinking it," he'd whisper to her when he thought I wasn't listening. "She'll get over it." I came home late again, third time that week, slipped through the front door like a shadow hoping to pass unnoticed. But there she was, perched at the edge of the couch, surrounded by that same low, anxious light. The door clicked shut behind me, and I froze. "Grace," she said softly, her voice tight with worry. "Where have you been?" "It's almost midnight." I didn't answer. I didn't even look at her. "Out," I muttered, already turning toward the stairs. "Wait." She stood up quick and unsteady. "We need to talk." My hand touched the banister. I didn't turn, not yet, but every muscle in me tensed. "About what?" "About you. About why you've been avoiding home." Her voice cracked, and I hated how small it sounded, like she already knew she wouldn't reach me. "You've been shutting me out, Grace." Tick, tick, tick. The only sound between us was the clock on the wall, slicing the silence into seconds too heavy to bear. My back was still to her fingers, digging into the railing like it was the only thing keeping me upright. "I'm tired, Mom. I don't want to talk." My voice came out flat, hollow. She tried again. "Please, Grace. I know things have been hard. It's not that." I turned then, slowly. My voice shook as I looked her in the eyes for the first time in what felt like forever. Whatever she saw in mine, fear, anger, maybe even disgust, it stopped her in her tracks. "I just need space." And then I was gone. Up the stairs before she could say another word. The door slammed behind me like a gunshot. She didn't follow. I think part of her knew she couldn't reach me anymore. Not like before, not now. I heard him come in after, heard the way he stepped up behind her like he always did. Like the villain stepping into a broken scene he helped create. He wrapped his arms around her, resting his chin on her shoulder, like it was something he'd earned. "She'll come around," he whispered into her ear, voice smooth and poisonous. "Just give her time." The next morning, Mom knocked gently on my door. A pause, then the creak of the handle turning. I was still in bed, buried beneath the covers, pretending I couldn't hear her. When she stepped into my room, I barely moved. Maybe a small shift under the covers, but I didn't lift my head. I didn't need to. I knew it was her. "I just want to talk," Mom said softly, her voice trying its best to sound calm. She sat on the edge of my bed like she used to when I had fevers as a kid. I felt her hand reach out, fingers brushing near my face, about to tuck away a strand of hair. Instinctively, I flinched. "Please, Mom, just go." Her hand hovered there, suspended in the air, for a second longer than necessary, before it dropped into her lap like a stone. I could feel her staring down at the sheets, at the tangled mess of blankets around me. "I know something's wrong, Grace," she whispered. "I don't know what it is yet, but I want to understand. I just want to help." For a while there was nothing. No sound but the low hum of the air conditioner and my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I heard my own voice, muffled and tired beneath the covers. "I'm fine." But I wasn't. I knew it. She knew it. The crack in my voice betrayed me. A few days later, I walked in after school, hoping to slip past her like always. But she was in the kitchen stirring something in a pot, and I could tell the moment she saw me something felt off. I could see it in the way her gaze followed me too closely. I dropped my bag near the table and grabbed a glass from the cabinet. The reach stretched my side, and I winced just slightly, but enough for her to catch it. "Are you okay?" she asked, her tone careful but alert. Her eyes were on me, sharp and steady. "Yeah." "Just tired," I said quickly, trying to sound casual, but my voice felt stiff in my throat like it didn't belong to me. She moved closer, drying her hands on a dish towel as she stepped forward. "You seem tense." I felt her hand lightly touch my shoulder, just a mother's reflex, But when her fingers brushed the side of my neck, I recoiled. Hard. She froze. "Grace," she said carefully, her voice tightening. "What is this?" She reached again, slow this time, gently pushing my hair aside. Her fingertips grazed the skin just below my jaw, and I knew she saw it. Then the edge of the bruise I hadn't managed to hide. I pulled away immediately, covering it with my hand. "I told you, it's nothing." My voice came out sharper than I meant, edged with fear. Her eyes widened, but she didn't back off. "That doesn't look like nothing," she said, the tremor in her voice betraying the panic she was trying to hide. "Grace, who did this?" I said. "It's nothing, Mom." I snapped, retreating a few steps, searching the room like there might be a way out that didn't involve this conversation. She reached for me again, more insistent this time, her hand finding my wrist. I stiffened, but she didn't let go. Her fingers shifted slightly, brushing against the fabric of my sleeve, and then she felt it. The other one, another bruise. I saw it on her face, the moment her fingers traced the shape of it, hidden beneath my sweater. Those faint purple blotches, too perfectly spaced to be anything but fingerprints. "Grace." Her voice cracked, and she pushed my sleeve up just enough to see the damage. The way she looked at me then, I'd never seen her face like that. "That's not from gym class," she whispered. I yanked my arm back, tears stinging behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I kept my eyes on the floor. "It's none of your business. It is my business." Her voice rose, the panic no longer masked. "What happened to you? Who did this?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. I stood there with my arms crossed tight against my chest, shrinking inside myself, wishing I could vanish. She stepped closer, her tone gentler, but trembling. "Grace, please. I'm trying. But I need you to let me in. I can't protect you if I don't know what's going on." I tried to speak. I really did. My lips moved, but nothing came out. I blinked fast, trying to will the tears away, trying to find the words. But then I heard it. His voice. Nathan's voice, humming lightly from the living room. Casual. Close. I glanced toward the hallway before I could stop myself. Just a flicker of fear, a reflex I didn't control. But it was enough. Mom saw it. "You can tell me," she whispered, her hand shaking now. "Is it Nathan?" My breath caught in my throat. I shook my head barely, but I didn't mean it. Even I could tell it wasn't convincing. Her whole face shifted, like something heavy had just dropped inside her, landing hard. From the other room, Nathan called out, "Everything okay in there?" I went rigid, completely still. And when Mom looked at me again, I saw at the exact moment her world started to unravel. That false ease, that perfect calm, it made my skin crawl. "Yeah, everything's fine." I answered quickly, the words stumbling out too fast. My voice wavered, but I tried to steady it, tried to sound like I wasn't unraveling from the inside out. But then he stepped into the doorway. Nathan stood there like he belonged, like this house was his to survey. That usual easygoing smile was plastered across his face, but I could feel the tension crawl up my spine the moment his eyes met mine. "What's all the fuss?" he asked, scanning the room like nothing was out of place, like my fear wasn't practically screaming from my skin. Mom's voice was tight, controlled. "We were just talking," she said, doing her best to sound calm, though I could hear the thin thread her composure was hanging on. Nathan's eyes lingered on me just a little too long, and I shrank back slightly, arms folding across my chest like a shield. I kept my gaze locked on the floor, willing myself to disappear. "Is everything okay, Grace?" he asked, his tone laced with mock concern. "Yeah," I muttered too fast again. "I'm fine." His smile widened, the same one that used to feel harmless warm. Now it felt like a mask. "Good to hear. he said, voice smooth as syrup. You know, Grace, I was thinking, maybe you and I could grab lunch this weekend. Just the two of us. Spend some time together. My whole body recoiled. It was instant instinctual. I took a step back, my pulse pounding in my ears. No, I blurted out, voice shaking. I've got plans. I saw it then, the way Mom's face changed. Something in her expression cracked at the sight of me, white-knuckled and trembling. She saw it, finally. Nathan, meanwhile, didn't flinch. Plans, he said with a soft chuckle, like I was just being cute. Well, we'll figure something out. There's always time, right? I couldn't do it. I couldn't breathe with him standing there. I turned and made for the stairs. I'm going to my room. I muttered, my feet barely touching the steps as I disappeared up them. Behind me, I could hear nothing but silence. But I knew Mom was still standing there, frozen with the weight of it all. I could feel her mind turning, feel her staring after me, even as Nathan said behind her, teenagers, they can be so dramatic. The next day, the kitchen felt like it was underwater, still, airless. Mom stood at the counter, staring into her coffee like she was trying to read the future in its swirls. The late light cut strange shadows through the room, and I could almost feel her thoughts pressing against the windows. I hadn't said much in days, just enough to keep from having to explain anything. Whenever she tried, I'd retreat upstairs, shut my door, turn the music up. Silence had become my armor. From the living room, his voice floated in too smooth, too calm. You're overthinking it again, Sarah, he said without looking up from his phone, thumb scrolling lazily. Teenagers pull away. You remember how you were at that age, right? I'm telling you it's different, Mom said, turning toward him, her voice wavering with doubt. I could hear it, how badly she wanted to believe that she wasn't just being paranoid. Divorce was hard. I was a teenager. Nathan sounded reasonable, even kind. But deep down, she knew. She had to know. Still, he got up, came to her, wrapped his arms around her waist, like he always did when he needed to bring her back under control. You worry too much, he whispered, brushing her hair behind her ear, that same sweetness in his voice that used to make her feel safe. Grace is tough. She just needs space. Don't push her. And she let herself believe it, just for a moment. She leaned into him the way she used to lean into Dad. Nathan had been there when Dad left. He'd stepped in, filled that vacuum with his warmth and steady presence. But now I could see the poison in his comfort. What if she started, but he cut her off, soft but firm. Sarah, you can't hover forever. She's becoming her own person. She'll come back around. Trust me. She nodded slowly as he kissed the top of her head, and I think in that moment she really wanted to trust him. That night she stood outside my door again. I could feel her presence even before she knocked. The house was quiet. The only sound was the dull murmur of the TV downstairs, Nathan's voice murmuring along with it. Grace. Can I come in? She asked gently. A long pause. Then, yeah. She opened the door and peeked inside. I was at my desk, staring blankly at my computer screen, barely moving. I didn't turn around. How was school? She asked, trying to sound casual, like we hadn't been walking around each other like strangers for weeks. Fine, I muttered, fingers tapping lightly against the wood. She stepped further in. I could feel her eyes scanning the room, taking in the mess, the clothes, the books, but not really seeing any of it. What she saw was me, the way I slumped forward, how I barely moved, like I didn't live in this space anymore, like I was just surviving in it. Grace, she began again, voice softer. I've noticed you've been distant. I just want to make sure you're okay. I'm fine. The answer came fast. Too fast. She knew it. I could feel her standing there, holding back everything she wanted to say. I'd seen her trying to connect, trying to catch my eyes when Nathan came up, trying to believe the lies I fed her about the bruises. She sighed, voice low. I worry about you. You know that, right? Yeah, I said, quiet, empty. She didn't push further. I think she wanted to, but something stopped her, some invisible wall between us that she didn't know how to break. That night, she didn't sleep. I heard her pacing. Hours later, I knew she'd made a decision, one I didn't see coming. While I was at school the next day, she installed a camera in my room. She hid it in the corner, tucked behind clutter so small it could have gone unnoticed. She told herself it was for my protection, that it was the only way. She didn't feel proud of it. Her hands shook while she set it up. Her stomach churned with guilt, but fear won out. Fear of what she thought might be happening. For days, nothing. I came home, did my homework, listened to music, kept to myself. I stayed out of Nathan's way. She watched the footage torn between shame and relief. Maybe she was just overreacting. But then one night she saw something. I was sitting on my bed perfectly still, not doing anything, just looking straight into the camera. My face was blank, eyes dull. But I knew it was there. She watched as I stared unblinking, then slowly got up, walked over to the desk and turned off the light. The screen went black, and all she was left with was the dark and the silence. 2 days later, I didn't come home. Nathan barely blinked. She's probably with friends, he said, that same smile curling across his lips. You know how teenagers are. She'll be back before you know it. But the hours passed, and my phone kept ringing to voicemail. Every ring that went unanswered sent a deeper chill crawling beneath my mother's skin, but I didn't know that. I didn't see her pacing the living room, clutching her phone like it was the only thread connecting her to hope. I didn't see Nathan sprawled across the couch, remote in hand, clicking through channels like my absence was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. She's fine, Sarah. He told her, voice lazy, almost amused. You've got to stop spiraling over every little thing. But it wasn't a little thing. Not to her. Not this time. In her desperation, she pulled out her laptop, hands trembling as she scrubbed through the footage from earlier that day. Hours of silence. Nothing out of place until it was. Until she saw him. It was late, and she'd gone to bed because she had to pretend everything was fine, had to lie beside the man she was starting to doubt, but still let pull her close. Nathan lay beside her, shifting under the blankets, his hand sliding across her arm like he always did. The gesture, once familiar, now felt foreign, suffocating. His fingers pressed into her shoulder, warm and deliberate. She tensed. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. Not tonight, she whispered, turning away from him, curling into herself, like maybe the darkness could swallow her whole. He sighed, rolled back to his side of the bed, the sheets rustling like a quiet reminder of everything left unsaid. The silence in the room stretched wide. It used to be a comfort. Now it was a prison. She lay there, eyes open, thoughts racing, unable to unsee what she'd watched my face pale and tight with fear, the way I recoiled when he entered my room. She couldn't sleep. She could barely breathe. Quietly, she slipped from the bed. Her bare feet touched the cold floor, her breath shallow, afraid he might wake up and read the guilt written all over her face. She grabbed her phone, clutching it like a lifeline, and crept into the hallway. She leaned against the wall, heart pounding like a drum inside her chest. She knew she shouldn't watch it again, but she had to be sure, had to understand why I looked at him like that. She pulled up the video again, pressed play. The footage was grainy shadows washing over the room. I was sitting on the bed, headphones in, unaware. Nathan slipped in behind me, his steps careful, calculated. His eyes scanned the room, checking. He reached out, touched my shoulder. I jumped, startled, pulling off my headphones, confused at first until it changed, until I saw his face, until the fear set in. She watched as I tensed, every muscle locked. Nathan knelt beside me, his hand settling on my knee. I flinched, moved away. He didn't. His hand slid up my thigh. She stopped breathing. I tried to push him away, panic written in every frantic gesture. He laughed, then grabbed my wrist, yanking me toward him. She could see my lips move. Stop. But he didn't. He didn't stop. The moment I tried to stand, he pulled me back down hard, my mouth open in a scream that the camera caught in eerie silence. His face twisted into something dark, something that stripped away the mask he wore around her. She couldn't hear what he said, but she didn't need to. She saw the look in my eyes. You're not going to tell her, his threat echoed in my silence. She won't believe you. And I believed that. I had to. He made sure I did. If you say anything, his words were poison. You'll both regret it. Then he grabbed my arm and dragged me off the bed. Off camera. She realized it too late. There were no cameras in the hallway. No eyes in the rest of the house. Just that one room. Just enough to watch the beginning, not the end. Her knees gave out and she collapsed against the hallway wall, phone slipping from her hand. Panic took over. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Nathan was a monster, and she'd let him in. The next morning, she couldn't look at him, not when he casually sipped his coffee, asking how she slept, like the night hadn't swallowed everything. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The moment he left for work, she ran to his office, the one he always kept locked, the one he told her was just for privacy. She tore through everything, papers, drawers, folders, and then her fingers found a latch behind a bookshelf, a hidden door. When it opened, the air inside felt thick, foul, like it had trapped every terrible secret ever whispered. And then she saw me. I was tied to a chair, my wrists raw, my face bruised, streaked with dried tears. Grace, she sobbed, falling to her knees. Her hands fumbled with the ropes, shaking, frantic, her breath coming in short gasps. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I could barely keep my eyes open. My body was limp. My voice, when it came, was a whisper. Mom. She held me like she could still fix this, like she could somehow put all the pieces back together. I'm here, she kept saying, rocking me in her arms. I'm here now. Her fingers trembled as she dialed 911. Her voice broke as she tried to speak. Please, she choked out my daughter. She's hurt. He did this. He's dangerous. The dispatcher's voice was calm, but it couldn't pierce the storm inside her. She dropped the phone and cradled me close, whispering apology after apology. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. She sobbed into my hair as sirens wailed in the distance, as help finally came too late to undo what had already been done. And I, barely conscious, barely breathing, curled into her arms like I had when I was a little girl. But the world wasn't the same anymore. It never would be. The sound of the front door crashing open barely registered in my mind. I was floating, weightless, lost, somewhere between the world of pain and the place where nothing could touch me. Everything blurred, but I remember the voices, the chaos, the cold rush of air as hands, gentle, steady, lifted me from my mother's arms and onto a stretcher. Her sobs followed me, clinging to the hallway like smoke. Ma'am, we're going to take care of your daughter. Can you tell us where the man is now? One of the officers asked her. He's at work, at the hospital. He's a doctor, she whispered, her voice ragged with guilt. They nodded, relaying the information into their radios while she stayed close, clutching my hand like she was afraid I'd slip away again. I felt the jolt of the ambulance, the whirl of motion and lights, her hand trembling in mine the entire ride. I could barely keep my eyes open, but I could feel her. I could feel the sorrow weighing down her every breath. She sat beside me as they wheeled me through the ER, but when the doors closed behind me, she was left standing there alone. That was when Dad appeared. Sarah. His voice rang through the hallway, breaking apart the silence like glass shattering. "Where's Grace?" I wasn't there to see her answer him, but I imagined the way her face must have crumpled, the guilt rushing to the surface, like it always did when truth clawed its way through denial. "It's Nathan," she told him. "He hurt her." I didn't know. I didn't see it. I imagined the way Dad's expression, twisted rage flooding his face as he stormed through the hospital halls, heading toward the man who had destroyed everything. "David, wait." Mom called after him, but he didn't stop. The staff lounge door slammed open so hard it rattled the walls. Nathan, smug as ever, was pouring himself a coffee when Dad found him. One punch. That was all it took. Nathan flew backward, crashing into a table. The room erupted in chaos. Shouts, gasps, scrambling footsteps. "You sick bastard," Dad roared, grabbing him by the collar, slamming him into the wall. "You touched my daughter. You took everything from us." Nathan's voice faltered. "David, you don't understand. I understand exactly who you are," Dad snarled, ready to hit him again. But police officers burst in, pulling him off before he could land another blow. "That man assaulted my daughter." Dad spat, eyes wild. "He's a predator." Nathan didn't speak. Not this time. There was no defense left to give. The officers exchanged a look, then moved to cuff him. The same man who used to smile at me like I was a silly little girl now looked like a shadow of himself. His jaw bruised, his confidence cracked, his arrogance stripped bare. As they led him out, the hospital seemed to hold its breath. Nurses whispered, doctors stared. The mask was gone, and the monster beneath was exposed. The trial came quickly, a whirlwind of headlines and courtroom whispers. I watched it all from the sidelines, the bruises fading on my skin, but not in my mind. Mom and Dad sat quietly, through every hearing, their grief hanging between them like fog. The stories came out, mine and others, people he'd hurt, people who never spoke. Now they had. He sat there expressionless while the truth was laid bare. Each testimony chipped away at the image he'd built until there was nothing left but the truth. When the judge read the sentence, the room didn't move. Nathan Cole Pale, no longer proud, was given the maximum penalty. As he was escorted out in cuffs, the crowd outside was waiting. "Monster," someone screamed, and the word echoed like thunder. Food flew through the air trash, whatever they had. He flinched with each hit, his face twitching, his eyes no longer meeting anyone's. I watched from a distance, standing beside my parents. Part of me felt something sharp and fleeting, justice maybe, satisfaction. But it was quickly drowned out by something heavier, grief. He was gone, but the damage wasn't. Later, in the quiet of the hospital, I lay in my bed, staring at nothing. My body hurt less than before, but the numbness remained. Mom sat beside me, holding my hand. Dad stood on the other side, arms crossed, jaw tight. No one spoke. Finally, Dad broke the silence. "How could you let this happen, Sarah?" Mom flinched like he'd slapped her. "I didn't know," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I thought he loved us. I thought he was helping." Dad laughed bitterly. "Helping? He was a monster. And you let him into her life. I didn't see it." She sounded like she didn't believe herself anymore. "I should have protected her. We both should have, Dad said quietly, staring at me. We can't change what happened, but we can be here now. We can help her heal. Mom nodded, eyes red. I'm so sorry, she whispered, not just to him, to me, to the girl I used to be. But sorry couldn't fix this. Weeks passed. I didn't talk much, didn't eat much. I wrapped my arms around myself and stared at walls. Mom tried. Every day felt like a new battle. The first time she saw me scratch at my skin until it bled, she fell to the floor crying. Please stop, Grace, she begged, trying to hold my hands, but I couldn't stop. I didn't know how. My hands wouldn't stop. No matter how much Mom begged, no matter how many times she whispered, don't hurt yourself, baby. I couldn't stop tearing at my own skin. It felt like I was trying to dig something out of me, something that didn't belong. His hands, his voice, his lies. My breathing came in short, panicked bursts, my fingernails drawing thin, angry lines across my arms. The nurses rushed, in voices urgent, firm hands separating me from my own destruction. Mom was pulled away, and I heard her sobs echo down the hallway as they shut the door behind her. But that wasn't the worst of it. I pushed everyone away, even Dad. He tried to be there, sitting beside my bed, reading aloud from books he used to read to me when I was small, trying to bring me back to a time when the world made sense. But I couldn't look at him. I couldn't look at either of them. When Mom entered the room, something in me twisted. I didn't see comfort. I saw failure, betrayal. One night it snapped. Dinner arrived on a tray. I stared at it for a moment, then flung it across the room with a scream that came from someplace deep, someplace raw and broken. Mom rushed to my side, trying to hold me, but I shoved her so hard she stumbled backward and crashed to the floor. Get away from me, I shouted, my throat tearing with the force of my scream. You didn't protect me. You let him in. You let this happen. She didn't say a word, just sat there on the cold tile crying. Dad caught me in his arms, whispering over and over, "It's okay, Grace. We're here. We're not leaving." But it wasn't okay. I shoved him too, curled into a ball, pulled the blanket over my head like I could disappear beneath it. I wanted to vanish. And then one night, I tried. I slipped out quietly while the ward was half asleep and the world felt still. A nurse saw me too late. I heard her cry out behind me as I pushed open the fire exit, climbed the stairs, and stepped onto the roof. The wind hit my face like a slap. I walked to the edge. The city glowed beneath me, small, distant, like it didn't matter. I felt the breeze tug at my hair, heard the rush of air below. I didn't feel scared, just done. Grace, Mom's voice cut through the silence, sharp with terror. I didn't turn. I heard the door slam open behind me. Footsteps, a sob. "Grace, please." She gasped close, but not too close. "Don't do this." The wind roared. I stared down. "I know I failed you," she said, her voice breaking apart. "I should have protected you. I didn't see what he was. But I'm here now, and I will never, ever leave you again." Still, I didn't move. She took a step forward. "Do you remember when you were little, and there was that thunderstorm? You crawled into my bed and clung to me all night. We talked about how clouds were just sleepy giants, remember?" I remembered. I didn't want to, but I did. "You were safe that night," she said. "I made sure you were safe." Something cracked. My shoulders trembled. My hands clenched into fists. "I love you, Grace," she said, "since the moment I first held you, and I'll love you every day after. I know I wasn't there when you needed me, but please, let me try to make it right. Just give me the chance." I turned my head. Slowly. Her eyes were wet, desperate. Her arm was outstretched, fingers trembling in the air between us. "Please, Grace," she whispered, "take my hand." I stared at it, my own hand trembling, and then finally I reached for her. The second our hands met, she pulled me into her arms, sobbing into my shoulder. I collapsed against her, my weight giving out. Dad was there too, wrapping his arms around both of us. We stood like that, the three of us, on a rooftop in the dark, the wind howling around us, clinging to one another like we were the last thing left. In that moment, I didn't know what healing looked like, but I knew it started here. In the days that followed, things didn't magically get easier. There were still nights where I woke up screaming, still hours where I curled into myself and didn't speak. But now Mom didn't leave. Dad came more often. We took small steps together, silent walks, quiet breakfasts, a shared laugh over an old photo. The pain didn't vanish, but it was no longer mine alone. Mom stopped letting work consume her. She rearranged her life around me, around us. We'd sit in the park, watch the wind in the trees, or curl up on the couch with old movies. Sometimes we didn't talk, sometimes we did, but she was there, always. Dad stayed too, not in the house, but in our lives. We built something new between us, not perfect, but strong in a way I hadn't expected. And one night, as we sat around the kitchen table, the light soft and golden, I laughed, really laughed. It surprised me, surprised them. I looked up and saw Mom staring at me with wide eyes, her mouth parting like she didn't believe it was real. Dad smiled too, tears brimming in his eyes. That moment didn't erase the past, but it gave us something the past had stolen: hope. Now that I'm 80 years old, I find myself thinking about the past more often. Not because I want to relive it, but because it never really left me. My mother passed away many years ago, but what happened to me when I was a teenager, the betrayal, the fear, the silence still lingers like a shadow that sometimes stretches longer in the quiet of night. The pain never truly went away, and maybe it never will, but I've learned to live with it. I've made peace with the fact that some wounds don't heal the way we want them to. Some stay tender, no matter how much time passes. But healing, I've discovered, isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to carry your story and still move forward. It's about refusing to let the worst day of your life define every day that comes after. I'm not sharing my story now to ask for pity. I don't want sympathy. I want understanding. I want awareness. And I want to speak finally fully for that 16-year-old girl who couldn't speak then, who didn't know how, who was too scared to be believed, because this isn't just my story. Sadly, it's the story of too many. If you're a parent listening to this right now, please hear me. This is not about blame. This is about awareness. Whether you have a daughter or a son, don't assume that just because they look okay, they are okay. Don't assume silence means peace. Sometimes it means they're trying to survive something they don't have the words for. Check in. Listen without judgment. Believe them the first time. The world out there is not always kind, and the danger doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes the harm is wearing a familiar face and smiling at your dinner table. That's the cruelest part. We can't change what already happened to us, but we can protect the next generation. We can teach our kids that their voices matter, that their bodies are their own, that fear doesn't mean they're weak, and that love, real love, never asks for silence. Looking back now, I know my mother tried. She failed me in ways that broke both of us, but she also fought for me when the truth finally broke through the surface. I forgave her. I had to for her sake, for mine, and for the version of myself that needed to be held, not just rescued. If you take anything from this story, let it be this trauma doesn't end when the abuser is gone. The aftermath is long, messy, and lonely, but it can be survived with love, with therapy, with safe spaces, and with time. Please don't turn away when your child pulls away. Don't write off their silence, their mood swings, their distance, as just being a teenager. Sometimes those are the only signals they can send. And if you miss them, if you ignore them, the cost could be everything. This isn't a story about tragedy. It's a story about survival, about learning to live in a body that remembers too much and still finds the strength to dance, to love, to laugh again. And if you've listened this far, thank you. Truly, you've honored my story just by hearing it. Now I'd love to hear from you. If you're a parent, what will you take from this? If you're someone who survived something similar, what helped you keep going? If you're young and scared, please know your voice matters. You matter. Drop a comment below. Let's talk. Let's not stay silent. Because silence protects the wrong people. And stories like this have the power to change everything.